Hey guys! So today is going to be a little bit more serious, as you can see from the title of this video. It's not like, oh, I'm going to cry. It's just, I think everybody needs to know this, because I know when I was in this position, I had no idea what was going to happen. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know anything. And so I, of course, YouTubed it, and there was some information, but not a whole lot. I noticed a lot of it was negative, which I really don't like. I try to stay as positive as possible. I fail a lot. But I just wanted to put out a video that was not just focusing on the negatives of this life. And as the title says, this is just my perspective. Like, just disclaimer out there. I don't know anything outside of the Navy, or, you know, I haven't done this for years. I'm only in year 4. Like, I don't know everything. I only know from my perspective the things I've had to go through with this and my experiences. So don't use this as like a free-for-all guide, because it's not. I only know what I know. So with that being said, I just want to start with, of course, a positive. I do have my pros and cons list, so if you see me looking down, I'm looking at my list. So my first positive with this life would be the stability, because obviously your husband or your boyfriend or whatever is signing up for a contract, which means they will guaranteed have a job for that long. Means guaranteed paycheck. Clearly things happen, like, you know, you get kicked out because you did something stupid or all of that. But this is just if you're like a normal average person that follows the rules, you'll have a job for a guaranteed 4 years. And it's not like you have to hope that they'll let you back in again. They clearly want you to stay. So it's a secure job for however long you want it to be. I'll get into that later. But you have a guaranteed paycheck for 4 years, sometimes 5 or 6. It depends on, you know, their job and all of that, which I'm going to try to use as much normal lingo as possible, because you will hear so many words that you're going to have to learn. You're going to have to learn a whole bunch of new words and different phrases that mean different things for different branches, and the branches being, you know, Navy, Marine, Coast Guard, Army, Air Force, all of that. And of course, they never use the same words for anything, except for like maybe 3. But so you have to learn all those new words. And with that being said, with the pay, usually in the Navy goes based off their rank, which is, you know, their pay grade. And that goes up depending on different, I don't know why I'm explaining this. It doesn't matter. Kristen, shut up. Anyway, guaranteed paycheck for that many years. And, you know, as the time goes on, you get promotions and pay increases and all of that. So, guaranteed paycheck. Like, why? That's obviously a pro. And with the pay, you also get housing if you're married, or, you know, you hit a certain rate. And I know it's like a lot of like smaller details, but once you qualify for housing, it's just, there's so many, I apologize, I'm pausing so much, is because there's so many like little itty bitty nuances in these rules that they have. And I'm trying to be as like honest and upfront with you guys, because I had to learn all of this by myself. So it's a little confusing at first. So I'm trying to explain it as best I can. So I apologize if I'm pausing or trying to gather my thoughts. So with the housing, you get an allowance for housing. And most bases in the US, I'm pretty sure they're all, but I'm going to say most, you have the option to live off base. And we did that. So we haven't lived on base before. And just because we've heard so many horror stories of military housing, which some of them are great, especially, you know, overseas and all of that. So we've heard. But as far as like, it just really depends on the base. Each base is going to have their own housing office that you can talk to, but they're very strict on their rules. Like you can get in trouble for a bunch of stuff and get written up and all of that. But anyways, if you live on base, the military just keeps that housing allowance. They're just like, okay, you're living here, we're going to keep that. If you live off base, like we are, you get to pocket whatever is left. So you get a set amount each month for your housing allowance. That means like, say you get $1,300 is your housing allowance, which means you can find somewhere to rent or be roommates with somebody where your rent's only $900. I don't know where you live, but it's expensive everywhere. So, you know, $1,000 average, whatever. You get to keep that extra $300 a month or put it towards utilities or electric or whatever you want. But that's the nice thing about living off base is you have that freedom to choose what area you live in, what you live near, what amenities you have, like in different apartment complexes, and you get to keep whatever's left. So that's why a lot of people do live off base and they get roommates. Roommate idea? I love our current roommate. Benny is great. We've had some bad roommates before. I would not recommend it if you're married or dating. If you're single, perfect. Yeah, have roommates. But if you're married, I don't recommend it. I've just had too many issues because we've had a roommate for, I think we've only not had a roommate for a year since we've been living together. And it's just too much headache for the money you save. I mean, unless it's your best friend and you've known each other for years and years and years. And sometimes you get lucky. Like I said, with Benny, he's great. Never had an issue with him whatsoever. It's just that you don't have the same privacy. Not that they're like bursting into your room or whatever, but I'm very much, when my husband comes home from deployment or being underway or anything like that, it's just weird to have a third person in the house when you want to just be alone. And not that, like I said, not that they're being like overbearing or like all in your face or just not leaving you alone. Like, Benny's great. He just goes in his room. But still, it's just that like mental thing of just like, oh, well, there's somebody else in the house. Like, we can't just do what we want. It's just for those reasons. And then like I said, past roommates have just completely ruined me on roommates because they're either disgusting or dirty and you end up cleaning up after everybody. That is the other thing. Yeah, with roommates, even if they're great, you as the wife or girlfriend or just the female, because it's the military, and unless you're a very strong personality person, which I'm not, I clean. That's my job. I'm the housewife for everybody. So, dishes in the sink? All right, yeah, I'll do the dishes. You know, living room's dirty? All right, well, is it dinner time? Okay, I'll cook dinner. Whatever. And during deployment, which, again, I will cover deployment on a whole nother video. But during deployment, I don't cook that much. I'm pretty minimal during deployment. Like, if I don't have to do it, I'm not gonna. So, sorry, little tangent there. But, military housing. So, it's a pro and a con. Because you get the housing allowance, but depending on where you live, the rules in that area for the military depends on if you can and can't live off base and what you can have. So it's still a bonus either way. You get pretty much free housing. Like, yeah, it goes into your paycheck and everything, but you still have to spend that money on rent anyways, or a mortgage or what have you. So you get that money in your paycheck and it's basically free housing. And because they don't count that with your base pay. So it's just an additional extra to say, here, have this. So you've got the guaranteed paycheck, you've got the housing allowance, you also have great health care. And this is really hard. I'm mostly talking to like wives. Like, I'll have other information in here for like girlfriends or boyfriends, whatever. but just for the wives, since that's my role, I really only know this role and the role of a spouse, really. Because with healthcare, it is amazing. Seriously, you'll get 2 options, prime or standard, which you'll get into and all of that. Everybody bashes the military healthcare system, like the news and all of those. Having been through it and using it all the time, it's the best thing in the world. Like, I don't know why people complain about it so much, especially since it's basically free. So I don't know if like the little, I don't know what the word is, but I don't know if it gets like a premium gets pulled from their paycheck. I don't think so, but Jake's never said anything like that to me before, so I'm assuming it doesn't. It's just a perk. Like, you know, you work for a job and they offer healthcare, you just get healthcare. I'm pretty sure that's how it works, at least just for the basic healthcare. I know if you're doing, like, if you want to add dental, yeah, they're going to take, I think I called and asked, it was like $7 or $11 a month to add dental for us, for the spouses, because they get whatever they want for free. They just go to the ship or the base or whatever and they just get what they need. But for us, medical is completely covered. I think vision is once a year, and dental you have to add on, I believe. I need to double check that. But either way, it's very minimal when you think about, like, if you ever had to pay for healthcare on your own or know somebody who has, like, I have family members that have to do that. It's outrageous how expensive it is. And the fact that we can literally go to the doctor, I say whenever we want, clearly you have to wait for an opening, but they're pretty open. I've had a few issues, and some not urgent, some, you know, fairly urgent, and they will get you in if they need to. Like, if it's immediate and it's not like urgent care immediate, because you do get urgent care in like emergency room visits, and there's a cap, but that doesn't matter. But yeah, so if it's urgent but not like life-threatening, like urgent care kind of stuff, they will get you in as soon as possible. Like, I had an issue with my back and I was going home to Oregon and I was going to be sitting on an airplane for 8 hours. I called the doctor like 2 days before I left because procrastinator over here. They got me in the next day. And when you looked online to their, you know, appointment center, they didn't have anything for like a month. So if you call, usually they can get you in sooner. But that's just all to say that they're very accommodating. Like, okay, it might be frustrating that if you need to go in for birth control or you need to go in for a prescription, or not a prescription, because those are really quick. I don't know, something like minor. And they don't have a lot of openings for those kind of things. So it might take a month or 2 to get in. But if you're not in a hurry and you think ahead, that's totally fine. The big key in all this is the military slogan, hurry up and wait. So plan, but have plans A through Z. Because you're going to end up using probably plan D or G or, you know, somewhere in the middle. I know those weren't in the middle, but you get the point. Because usually the first plan doesn't work out, but it's good to have like a base idea of what you want. So like with the military, like, okay, you know that this is coming up, so you need to make an appointment around this time. If you know that like 2 or 3 months in advance, perfect. So then that way you have plenty of time. You're not in a rush for when that time comes to get into the doctor. But if it's urgent, more than likely they can get you in. But like I said, it's free. Like blood work, you don't have to pay out of pocket for that. There's, like I said, there's Prime and Standard. I'm on Prime, and everybody complains like, oh, you can't choose your doctor. And for some reason, that's a big deal to some people. To me, it's not. Like, a doctor's a doctor. They're all trained the same. So I don't have a copay. I don't have to pay for my prescriptions. If I need to go to the doctor, I just schedule an appointment and go to the doctor. I don't have to pay for anything out of pocket. Keep growing up. Like, my family had very, very good health care. So I didn't have to worry about not being able to see a doctor. So being an adult and not having access to that anymore, knowing that I could still do that and not have to worry about paying thousands of dollars or, you know, anything like that to go see a doctor for something minor. Because let's be honest, I hate going to the doctor. I avoid it at all costs. But even though it's free, that's the mental thing on me. But it's just nice to have that resource that's just one less thing to worry about. That if something's wrong, you don't have to have, you know, $2,000 in your budget to pay for it. You know, you need surgery, or you need, you know, a cast, or somebody broke their arm, especially if you have kids. Oh my gosh, I could not imagine how nice this would be if you had kids, because we don't have kids yet. So yeah, with kids, like I said, I could not imagine having this resource with kids. Like I said, I have family members that have to pay for healthcare out of pocket. And we've talked at length, like, how expensive it can be. And it's just so sad how expensive it is, but just the mental security and physical security of knowing that when we have kids, we don't have to worry about anything happening. Like, if something happens, great. We don't have to worry about it, you know, bankrupting us because, you know, God forbid something horrible happens, and it's expensive. Healthcare is a necessity, but it's so expensive. And I'm not, like, going into political thing right now. It's just, it's something I'm so thankful for with being a military spouse, is having that available to me to just relieve stress for any future things that come up, or past things that are still you know, anything. It's just one less thing to worry about. And that's my healthcare rant. Sorry. Long drawn out. Basically, the short of all of that, you get healthcare and it's amazing, and people bash it when they shouldn't, because it's free or close to it. And just because it's free doesn't mean you should complain about it, because you would be hurting if you were in a different situation than you are now. But moving to the other side of the positives, just another negative, just to be fair in this video, to be completely honest and transparent, because it's not all sunshine and rainbows. It's not. It's definitely harder, I think, than civilian life, since we were, like I said, it's really hard to judge because we weren't in that life working for a long time before Jake joined the military. So I don't have a whole lot to compare it to. Like, I don't have the same experiences as other people will, who may have waited 10 years to join, not 10 years, but, you know, 5 or 6 years to join the military and worked in the civilian sector before. And, you know, so like I said, I just have what I know to go on. But to me, it's a negative. I don't remember where I was going with that. But to me, I think it's really difficult. And again, taking into account, I'm not the one actually working. Like, I'm not the one in the military. My husband is. So I don't know what he does day to day. That's just his job. I mean, I can know about this much of what he does. And, you know, I knew that going in. I knew that that was his job. I can't know certain things. And that's one of the hard things about this life, is depending on your husband or your partner, whoever's job, your spouse's job, you might not get to know what's going on. You just have to trust what they're doing if they tell you something. And not that they're doing anything scary, but there are certain jobs that are at a security clearance that you can't know. And I think a lot of them are that way, where, you know, you're not in the military, so you don't get to know what's going on. So when they come home, it's like, hey, honey, how was your day? That was fine. Like, there's not a whole lot of work conversation going on, which is hard because your whole life, I kid you not, revolves around their work. It is so hard to take a vacation. Like, I'm a big planner. I plan for everything. I dream. I have 50 vacations on the back burner right now that will never happen, but I'm just that way. And it's really hard to adjust to the military way of things, where I'm not saying you can't go on trips. You can. It's just a lot more difficult, at least from what I've experienced, because there's no guarantee they get the time off. They have to, they have a certain time where they can start requesting that time off. And there's still a chance, if it gets approved, that they can say, oh, just kidding, you need to work. So my biggest advice is, if you like to go on trips and you like to plan trips, one, make sure they actually have the time off. Like, make sure they've submitted it and it's gone through and it's approved. And the second thing, always buy trip insurance. Always. Because the one time you don't is going to be the one time they say, just kidding, you can't go. We need you to do this, or this came up, or what have you. So always buy that. I know it's a little bit more expensive a lot of the time to do that, but in the long run, it's so worth it, because if you do get that call where he can't go and you've already paid for the trip, usually with trip insurance, depending on where you're going, you either get to reschedule or you get your money back. But if for the minimal $200 that it costs for the insurance, you don't lose the thousands of dollars you've paid for this vacation. Because if you don't have the trip insurance, you might just have to go by yourself, or just eat that money because there's nothing you can do because you didn't buy the insurance. So that's my biggest tip with that, because Jake and I have made it a point that we want to, try to go on a vacation at least once a year, because I think that's very important. And so does he, because their work schedules are so demanding. They're at work constantly. And so when you do get that little bit of time off, I'm sure that they would prefer to stay home and not do anything, but you want to make those memories when you can. So I am very much an advocate for yearly vacations, because you both need to go out and do something you haven't done before, or go somewhere you've never been, or go somewhere you have been but you absolutely love. But just do it together and get away from the house, because you can have a weekend here and there, but I just feel like there's something special about leaving your day-to-day life to go do something else. I think that just puts that whole memory making to a whole new level. That's just me personally, so that's a recommendation for me. But with the work schedules, it really is, when I say demanding, they're technically salary. So they don't get paid hourly, which means some days they'll get off at 1 in the afternoon, sometimes 11. And other days they'll work till 6. And they won't know until they get there that day on what time they're going to get off. And even then, they're still not going to know until their chief says, all right, go home. So their work schedules, you can't count on anything. It's just, there's no way to verbalize what that's like. And I'm sure a lot of you understand what I'm talking about, but being fresh into the military, or your spouse is thinking of signing up, or whatever is going on, these are just things to keep in mind. And it's a con, because it's not ideal to have happen. As far as work schedules go, being demanding, it would be great if they had a 9 to 5 or 8 to 4, whatever, just a standard work day. They get to come home every day at the same time, but you also get those days that they're home at 11 in the morning, or they get off at 1, and then you have the whole day, and it's a Friday, and then you have a 3-day weekend, or they have this holiday off, whatever, so it's a give and take. Some days they have to work really late, and sometimes that lasts a while, but then you get those days where they get off early, and I think it balances out pretty well, at least for the past, what I've seen. It's not tilted more one way than the other, and I'm sure being the ones working it feels like they have to stay late more than they get off early. But that's just with everything in life. You remember the bad things. You remember when you had to stay late. You remember all of those. You don't remember the times you got off early. You don't remember those things. Not that you get to make your spouse's decision to stay in or enlist or anything like that. I'm just, if you're the spouse, you have a lot of say in what they're doing. They might not admit that, which, sorry babe, because I'm sure you're going to watch this. They don't like to admit that, but we do. They ask our opinions. They want to know what we think. And so this is also like, if they're thinking about enlisting and you're just kind of wondering what your life's going to be like, I want to have this as a resource to you to know what you're getting into, so you can answer that question: should I join, or should he join, or she, or whatever, with as much information as possible to know what you're getting into. Whether, you know, you're okay with the long hours, or you're okay with some of these cons, because to me the pros definitely outweigh the cons of this. But I'm not going to just keep all those things out or focus one side or the other, because it's not all bad and it's not all good. It's just really how I was, you know, what my parents always told me, it's how you look at things. If you choose to be happy, or you choose to look on the positive side, it's going to be fine. Or if you choose to look at all the negatives about this, you're not going to have a good time. It's not good. It's not the thing for you to do, you know, because I think, totally putting myself on a pedestal right now, I think it takes a special kind of person to be the spouse of a military member. I'm not being one of those dependas like, oh, you need to respect me because my husband's no, none of that. It's just, it's not something a lot of people can handle. And I'll talk about that a little bit more when I go into my deployment video, because that's another negative, but that could take a whole nother video. But like I said, I'll go into the whole, you know, it takes a special kind of person to do this, and not sugarcoating it. Deployments are the hardest thing in the world that I've ever experienced, and it's not for everybody. And I'm not trying to say, oh, you have to be this kind of person, or you have to be strong, whatever. I'm not that way. Keep going into this. I have another video coming out about just deployments where I'll go into that. But the whole point of this is, I'm not saying that you have to be a certain kind of person to do this. I just think it takes a lot more of somebody to be a spouse of somebody who's serving. And I'm not perfect. This is the hardest thing I've ever done. And I'm just the spouse. Like I said, I'm not the one in the military, which I can't even imagine how hard that is. I respect my husband so much for doing it. It's just, from my perspective, I find it difficult. Just from how I was raised and what I perceived as what a marriage should be, and all of those things. Because it doesn't the military life doesn't put a strain on your marriage if you don't let it. It can definitely make your marriage as strong as possible. You know, everybody goes through their ups and downs and all of that, but if you let it, you know, it just goes back to that whole positivity thing. If you look on the bright side of things and you don't let this military life define who you are and make it like, oh, it's the worst thing in the world, it's going to hurt your marriage, because the military comes first. It always does, because if they need them, they have to go. There's no, oh, well, I can't today. They have to go. Like, there's no, oh, my wife said they have to go. So it comes first. And if you don't take the time for just the two of you, or you don't make it a point to stay connected to each other, it gets hard. And again, I'm not sugarcoating this. It's, I think, speaking just for myself, but I feel like a lot of other military spouses go through the same thing, you know? You're gonna have your fights. You're gonna have, you know, times where you feel like you're not important, or, you know, work comes first, and it's really hard to take a step back from those feelings and realize that, yes, the military comes first in a scheduling aspect, but, you know, they still love you. They're just exhausted. They're busy, all of that. So I know that doesn't make the military sound attractive at all, but it's just the way you look at it. You know, if you're going to put, it's just like, if you put the effort into the marriage, it's going to work. If you put the effort into thinking the military life is going to be good, it will be. But if you sit there and bitch and complain the whole time, you're just not going to have a good time. That's just the gist of it. Like, there's no pro on the pro-con list that could persuade you otherwise if you're just not going to go into it with the right attitude. And with having the right mentality, I fell into that negative mentality when we moved. So we came, you know, from Oregon, and when Jake enlisted and we were going through the process and everything, we got the orders to go to Hawaii. Like, he called me, he's like, we got Hawaii. I just have to get this certain eval before we go. And being the military, this is the prime example. He needed to get some evaluation within the next, like, say 2 weeks. They were booked out 2 months. And he didn't get it, which means we didn't get Hawaii. Clearly, I'm not living in Hawaii. And so that definitely made my perspective on where we were moving horrible. Because it was Hawaii, no, you got here. And it just made me miserable. Like, I have not enjoyed the past 4 years just because I came into it with the attitude that I hated it. Like, I knew I wasn't going to like it, and I didn't even give it a chance. I was just like, no, this is going to be horrible. I don't like anything. I had never lived here before. I had never even visited this side of the country. And in my head, I had built it up so bad that when I got here, that's what I got. I don't do anything. I hardly ever go out, you know? I just convinced myself it wasn't for me before I even got here. I never even gave it a chance. And so now with our next move, I'm definitely excited. Like, there's always negatives to anything, you know, if you think long enough about it. But focusing on the positives, I just don't want another experience like these first 4 years, because yeah, there were great things about where we live now. And I was just so close-minded that I let it ruin the whole experience for me. And that's why we're so excited for where we're moving next, because it's a whole new adventure. It's something to look forward to. It's something we've never experienced before. And looking at it that way makes it exciting, makes this military life worth it. It makes it so intriguing to stay in, to be like, oh, where are we going to move next? Where are we going to go next? Because moving on my list, that's the next pro, is you get to see so much of the world, depending on if you want to. You know, when your spouse is up for enlistment again, or re-enlistment, they give you a list. And you get to choose, sorry, I can't hold still. You get to choose where you want to move. Like, you don't get to choose, you get to ask if the place you want to go is on that list. You put in for it. You say, hey, I want to go here. And if they're like, okay, then that's where you get to go. But a lot of times they say no. But with where we're going next, we had put in 4 or 5, no, I think like 3 other times before we got this. And you know, we kept getting no, because we tried for Hawaii again. And they kept telling us no. And so then we decided, you know, let's go to another country. Let's experience another culture. Let's get out of America just to see what it's like. And what other job are you going to have the opportunity to move to another country for free? Like, yeah, you have to pay to move your pet, but they basically move the rest of it for you. And like, who else can afford to just pick up all their stuff and let's go move to Europe, let's go move to, I don't know, China, Japan, wherever? it's so expensive to do those kind of things. Whereas the military, that's why it's such a pro, is you get to see anything you want pretty much. When you get that list, if there's something overseas, if you and your spouse are adventurous enough and, you know, you've talked about it, because definitely talk about it, you get to see so many new places and live in so many different places that you wouldn't get to, more than likely, without the job taking you there. And to be able to move there and have job security and know that, okay, well, we don't have to go job hunting when we move. Like, it's not an unknown. It's, they provide the housing if you want them to. And it's like jumping in feet first, not head first, or the opposite of what everybody says. It's just, you're going for it, but you have the resources there to make it less scary. And I mean, the fact that we're moving to another country that speaks English helps. I'm not sure how much more nervous I would be if they didn't speak English. But we know a lot of people in the military that do. You know, they've moved to another country that speaks another language. We actually know 2 people that moved to Germany, of all places. Like, I don't speak German. I don't know if, you know, they learned the language before they moved, or, you know, if they just decided to learn while they were there. It just, who gets to say they moved to Germany for 4 years? Like, what? Nobody gets to do that. And I say that, nobody I know gets to do that unless they're in the military. And I think that's just such a huge positive of the military life, is you do get to experience so many things. You get to move to these amazing places. But you also could stay in the United States if you want to. Like, if you have family or you have kids, or, not that you can't move overseas with kids, you totally can. But if you're, you know, you just want to stay in the U.S., there's so many bases here that you can go to pretty much any state that has your branch, you know, if it's open. And again, I need to preface, I say these things, I'm not 100% sure. I only know from what I know and from the list we saw when we were re-enlisting what was available. And there was a lot in the United States. And it's just what's available when it's your turn. And, you know, you might end up being those people that get sent where the military wants you. You definitely, your very first where you live is where they want you. That's how we got stuck here. They just decided, we didn't get to ask where we wanted to go. They just said, you're moving here. And that's very typical, I believe, when you first join. After that, I think you get to start choosing, like we are. With each enlistment, you know, you get a higher priority, like, yeah, I want to go here, or, you know, this, that, and the other. And I think it's just that first go. But you should know ahead of time where you're moving. It's not like you're moving in a month. Heads up. I don't think that's the case. At least not that I remember. It's been, I say so long, it feels like forever ago. It feels like we've been doing this for like 10 years. Not that old. But anyways, the moving is a huge plus if you let it be. Because with that, you get to make new friends. And that could be a pro and a con if you let it. With the new friends, you know, you move somewhere new. You've never met anybody there, probably. You maybe have visited if you're lucky. If not, you don't know anything about the area. You don't know the people. You don't know what there is to do. You don't have any idea of anything there. And it's a little daunting. But if you reach out to people and you make friends with people whose spouses or boyfriends or girlfriends are on the ship with your husband. And I say ship because this is mostly Navy, because that's all I know. But I'm sure it would work for I don't know, platoon or group, squad. I don't know what the other branches call their little work people. That was very, very technical term there. But if you make friends with people who work with your significant other, it will make life so much easier, because when they do go on deployment, it makes it nice because you have that community to talk to who's going through the same thing as you, who's dealing with the same things. And if you're lucky, you know, you'll have a couple friends that are newbies just like you, who've never been in this life before. And you'll have a few friends that are experienced, who've done this before, which really help, you know, they can answer your questions, they can ease your concerns, they can, you know, help you navigate this life, because when you're first starting out, it's kind of hard. You know, there's a lot to learn and a lot to do, and having that resource of friends who understand what you're going through is just a huge bonus. I love the friends I've made here. Wish I would have made more. But I didn't take advantage of all the opportunities I should have when we moved here, because like I said, of my attitude when we moved, that I wish I would have made more friends. I wish I would have gone to the military events. Like, the ship puts on different, they have, you know, the Navy ball, and then they have like Christmas parties and parties for this and parties for that the ship just puts on for, you know, like just the ship community and their families. And I haven't been to any of them. And I really kick myself for not doing that, because I could have made so many new friends. And I can't stress that enough if you're watching this to get pointers or tips or what to do, because that's the biggest thing I regret, is not making more friends and not being more, the word, not adventurous, but probably gonna cut this out. More confident in making friends. I always was afraid that I was gonna get judged, or nobody was gonna like me, or anything like that. Like, my confidence in terms of making friends was like zero, because in my mind, well, you're not in school. Like, how are you gonna make friends? You just walk up to somebody and say, hey, can I be your friend? Like, to me, that was just a foreign, you don't do that. But I've made friends by doing that. Like, one of my really good friends here, that's how we met, was when our husbands were coming home from deployment and we're sitting in the tent waiting for them to come home. We just started talking. We got each other's numbers, forgot about who each other was for like a year. And then our husbands talked on the ship, and we figured out that we both had the same problem. And now, you know, we talk a lot. And it's just nice having that. And all you have to do is just go up and talk to somebody. I'm not that way. I'm very in my own little box, like my own little bubble. You know, I'm not friendly. Like, if you talk to me, I'm going to be super friendly. But I've just never been outgoing enough to just walk up to somebody. My brother, on the other hand, yeah, he can talk to anybody. Me, I'm just like, oh, well, I'm just going to stand here and wave unless you approach me. And so that was definitely a hard thing for me to overcome. But when I have done that, the friends I've made, you know, it's just been amazing to be able to have that resource while our husbands are gone. And that also counts for, you know, things to do in the events. And when you know people, it makes it more enticing to want to go. Instead of going to an event with hundreds of people, you don't know anybody. Like, that's a little scary to me. Again, I'm pretty much a hermit. Like, being out in public's a little frightening. It's just, I can't stress it enough how important I think that is. So if you're using this as a guide of what not to do and recommendations and all of that, make friends. Definitely, that's at the top of the list. Back to my notes. And with the moving... Hey guys, Future Kristen here. So I'm going to have to break this video up into 2 parts just because after editing it, it is so long and there's so much information. I'm just going to have to split it up because I don't want you guys to have to sit through like an hour-long video. So this is the end of part 1. Stay tuned for part 2.